Hello, sports fans. Welcome back to the KSN Underground Podcast. My name is Brian Gailey, and I am the host for your podcast. I have two guests on the show today. I first chat with Mazama Football head coach Vic Lease about last week's game against Marshfield, what went right and what went wrong. Then we look ahead to the new matchup between the Vikings and the Crater Comets. For those unaware, the previously scheduled game against the 2020 3A state champs, Cascade Christian, was canceled due to a COVID outbreak in the Challengers' locker room. A game was then scheduled against Crater in Central Point to replace the road game versus Cascade Christian. I talked to Coach about how this came about and what would happen if smoky conditions persisted on Friday. Spoiler alert, the Vikes may have to do what Henley did last week and travel to Eugene for their game. My second guest is one of three team-voted captains for the Vikings. Starting senior center, Nate Tramp. Nate, a longtime football player, has been playing since the second grade. I take a few minutes to get to know Nate a bit more as a player, what he likes, and what he dislikes. But first, I want to thank our sponsor for this episode, you, our KS Insiders. You might be asking, who is a KS Insider? A KS Insider is a financial supporter of Klamath Sports Network. I can hear you now. He wants money. Before you tune me out, listen to this. KS Insider is a way for fans to support what is done here on Klamath Sports Network, because without your support, content and shows like KSN Underground would not exist. Anyone can be a KS Insider, especially if you love high school athletics. Parents and family of players? Check. Fans of a school or program? Check. Fans of what we do here at Klamath Sports Network? Check. People with a pulse? Check. I invite you to help by pledging as little as $5 per month. Every little bit helps keep me caffeinated and fuel in the tank to cover those road games. For more information, visit klamathsports.net and click on the yellow button at the top of the page that says Become a KS Insider. Our program is managed via the Patreon platform. There is no obligation for you to sign up. You can cancel at any time. Pledges start at $5 per month. Content like this cannot be made without support from people like you. Thank you. Now, for my conversation with Mazama Vikings head football coach, Vic Lease. So last week, Coach, the Vikings opened the season against Marshfield. The first half looked a bit sluggish for the Vikes, but the second half, the team looked great. Unfortunately, the Vikes didn't come away with the win as we had hoped. In your own words, what happened in that first half against the Pirates?
When you replace four varsity linemen and a 3-year veteran at quarterback, it's pretty tough to run our offense. So we missed a number of calls up front. We didn't pick up the blitz a couple of times, and we had to go over some things at halftime to prepare us for the second half, and that's why there was a difference. We were able to move the ball effectively in the second half and do some things that we should have done in the first half, and we still have a lot to clean up. We're not the team we were a year ago. People in the stands, they think we're just going to pick up where we left off, and these are teenage boys, and we got to get them going and get them ready to go. Most programs, they got to go through a rebuilding cycle after graduated class like that. We have the tendency not to do that. We stay pretty consistent, but this year replacing four starting linemen has been difficult.
I can imagine on your side of things that you got to adjust to the talent you have.
That's correct.
You mentioned you made some halftime adjustments. The team I saw in the third quarter was not the team I saw in the first half. What did you say?
I assure you it's the same. And had they made the correct calls, you would have seen us move the football more effectively. We fumbled the ball on the 6, running counter option because our quarterback got hit. Pitch came out back behind the running back. They fell on it and scored. Or it would have been a 7-0 halftime score because our defense played pretty well in the first half. And that wasn't the case in the second half. We didn't play as well as we did in the first half. They came out in an empty set and kind of put us on our heels a little bit. We were prepared for that, but it rattled our young DBs, and there's another spot that we've had to replace all four starters. We're still learning. We're young there and we're learning. So,
what'd you say to your guys at halftime?
Compete. I don't care about what the score says at the end of that game. I want to get better. That's what this game was about from the very beginning, was for us to improve and get better. We wanted tough competition, and we wanted to find out where we're at. And clearly we're not as progressed as where we thought we were as a team. But in the second half, we did get better. And that's what I challenged those young men to do, was to get better in the next 2 quarters, and that's what they did.
They did. Definitely, they stepped up. Every game and every practice, you guys do all rights out there on the field. For those not familiar, it's kind of a kudos from the coaches to the players of who was really kind of elevated for that game, right?
Yeah, performed well.
Performed well. Thank you. Who got your all right on Friday?
Brandon Gailey got my all right. And I think primarily because, going back watching the film, he made some mistakes, but he runs the ball hard. He competes. He gets after it, and I felt the same way about Aiden Kent, running the ball well, and Zeke Eaton. Our backs looked really good running the ball. Now, saying that they made the correct blocks every time, that's not an accurate statement. They made some, our halfbacks, when there's not a tight end to their side, they make calls on inside and outside veer on who we're supposed to block and who we're supposed to read. And there were some missed calls on Friday night by both of our backs and our tight ends and our tackles during Friday night. But I gave him my all rights because he's competing. Every time he touched the football, he got after it and ran the ball hard. He got mine.
Last week was last week. We can't change the past, but we can learn from it. This week, you guys were supposed to face Cascade Christian on the road. However, they came down with the COVID protocol, and it changed everything for you. Yesterday, you guys scrambled and got a game against Crater. How's that going to shape up for you this week?
So that all shook down about an hour before our coaches' meeting. We got a phone call from their athletic director letting us know that they had a couple of positive cases. Now it's up to 3 positive cases in their program. And I knew right off the bat that Crater didn't have a game this Friday. And so they had a hole in their schedule. So I immediately called David Hurd, who's a very good friend of mine, who's the athletic director there, and made sure they still had an opening. And I said, let's play it. He agreed, and he talked to his coach, and they wanted to play us. So it happened pretty quickly. The issue was, though, in the matter of phone conversations that we're going back and forth, it was about 30 minutes before my coaches' meeting, which is an hour and a half before our film session, which we were supposed to be preparing for Cascade Christian. So that threw a wrench into everything. So in the coaches' meeting, I let my coaching staff know what was going on. We still don't know if we're going to have a JV game with Cascade Christian. It doesn't look like we are. And if that's the case, we'll end up having a JV game on Monday with Crater. But we're still working through all that. I'm still waiting to hear what we're going to do, if we can move forward or not. When we got into the film session at 5, we basically just covered the Marshfield game, what we did last week, what we need to improve on, our focus there. And then we went out and practiced for about an hour and a half to fix some things and clean some things up. Today, we are going to prepare for Crater. We exchanged film late yesterday. We have them broken down. We're going to start our day in the classroom watching film for about a half hour, 45 minutes or so, just get a feel for them, and then we'll get out in the field and prepare for them. My coaches we have a scouting report already put together, and their plays, their defensive alignment and everything, so we'll be prepared for a good 2-hour practice today. So that's the plan.
Fortunately, you were able to get that game together, and there wasn't a hole in the schedule. But instead of playing the 2023 A champs, you now play a 5A team that went 4-2 last season. They were tied for second in their conference. Thurston won their conference last year. You guys defeated Thurston last year as well. Do you think this game against Crater might end up being a little bit easier than it would be against Cascade Christian?
Absolutely not. Cascade Christian they're a good football team, but they're not a 5A team. They're just not. The athletes that are at a 5A school are completely different than that at a 3A school. Their scheme is very similar too, and their defenses are very similar. Personnel-wise, Cascade Christian is a little bit bigger up front, but athlete-wise, Crater's got some kids running around there. So it'll be very similar to facing a Marshfield is what it'll be this Friday night, and we got our hands full. There's no doubt about it. They're a good football team. They're a good football program. They played for a state championship 2 years ago, so they know how to compete and get after it. And they lost to Thurston in that state championship game 2 years ago. And it's going to be a good game. It's going to be physical. We're looking forward to it. Really this week, it wasn't really about the opponent on Friday night because we have so much stuff that we have to fix with these young players on our team. We're really looking at ourselves more than we're looking at our opponent. If we don't get some things fixed, if we don't get back to how we run the football and execute offensively and defensively, this is going to be a long season. We need to do that. We need to internalize and start focusing on what we need to do to get better. And the competition is good. It's great. Magnifies our mistakes is what it does. When you play an inferior opponent, a weaker opponent, even when you make mistakes, you still have success. Some of these boys at the freshman and JV level, that's what they've been used to because they've just been better athletes. Well, varsity football is not like that. And especially when you play these better programs that have good coaching staff and good athletes, you make a mistake, they make you pay. And that's what we experienced last Friday night. And this Friday night, if we don't take care of business, we're going to experience the same thing.
When looking at Crater, what they have to offer, what do you see as being their biggest firepower, their biggest powerhouses, and who are you watching for?
They have a good running game, and they're in a spread set, but they have a good running game. They're in a pistol formation, so there's some misdirection and some zone read stuff that we're going to have to play good discipline assignment football. They have a couple of good receivers. Their quarterback is not as good as what we faced last week. I mean, that kid's a whole nother level, but he can throw the ball. I believe he's a sophomore quarterback, so he's still coming along kind of like our sophomore quarterback. They got some decent size up front. They have a couple of kids that are about one's 230, another one's 255. A couple of them are 255 and 265 on their offensive line. So they got some decent-sized boys up front that we're going to have to play with good pad level and stay low. Their fullback, kind of like their H tight end type of kid, he's a sophomore. He's 6 foot, 215. He also plays middle linebacker for them. So they do have a handful of kids that go both ways. We'll see how that treats them on Friday night. That's really about it in a nutshell. Defensively, they got a couple of kids up front that are really good. They got 2 D linemen. One's about 6'4", 230. The other one's about 6 foot, 265, and they can play. Their DBs are pretty good. They got a couple of good linebackers. It'll be a good matchup for us. We're looking forward to it.
Well, I can't wait to see that one. It's kind of one of the matchups on paper that you kind of always would like to see happen. Mazama versus Crater, I think that's awesome. And we're going to be at their house in Central Point. Now, something I wanted to ask you about there is conditions are a little smoky today as we record this. And in your parents' meeting you had a couple weeks ago, you talked a bit about smoke here and your decisions here locally. If you can see hogback or not, that kind of helps determine whether or not conditions are there. This morning, just a few minutes ago, the AQI was 160, and hogback is barely visible now. I know you make the decisions here locally. What happens over there at Crater? Because we're kind of dealing with the same smoky issues as they have over there.
Everybody's playing by the same rules under the OSAA. So anything under 100, you can play games, you can do whatever. Okay, you just got to watch, any air-sensitive kids, anybody that has a breathing issue, you just need to keep an eye on them. But you could play a full football game, anything under 100, so 99 and below, okay? Once it gets to 100, you cannot play a contest. You're not supposed to have a normal practice. You can practice, but it can't be a normal practice. It has to be toned down, and you can only go for 90 minutes outside when it's from 100 to 150. Anything above 150 has to be inside. You got to cancel everything and go inside. We're dealing with that right now. As a matter of fact, today's contest for our girls' soccer game is supposed to be with Crater. We moved that to tomorrow so they could play there tomorrow night. We've already made that decision. We don't know what's going to happen later in the week with the freshman and JV football games, but we do have a contingency plan for Friday night. Crater's unplayable. If Crater's unplayable, you can better believe we're going to be unplayable. So we're going to have to go north. We are talking to some Eugene schools right now. There's a couple of schools that we've reached out to. I'm waiting to hear back from one. Eugene looks like a very viable option. So we also have Marshfield again as a backup plan. We don't want to drive 5 hours again. I mean, that's kind of a, once a season deal. So 3 hours is very doable going to Eugene. We've done it numerous times. We did it multiple times last spring. We're pretty used to that. So I'll know later today what our backup plan is, and we'll have that in place if we can't play. And
at what point does that decision get made?
Probably have to make that call early Friday morning. In a 24-hour period, it could be vastly different. So I have always been of the mindset to wait for the very last minute, but in a situation like this, when we have to travel anyways, we might as well just get in a bus and start heading north, because it doesn't look like it's going to change here. If the numbers aren't close, like really close, it's not worth waiting until the last minute, because then you're rushing everything and all that.
Yeah, I know the Hindley and Ashland got relocated to Willamette High School in Eugene last week as well for the exact same reason, and they did make that call early so that both teams and parents could make that travel.
Right, absolutely.
I thank you for your time.
All right, great.
Thank you, Coach Lease, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to visit with us here on the KSN Underground Podcast. Up next is my interview with Vikings starting senior center and one of the 3 team-voted captains, Nate Tramp. So, Nate, thanks for being on.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
So we're talking with the captains of the Mazama football team, and we're glad to have you here talking with us. First question I have for you is, how long have you been playing football?
I've been playing football since the 2nd grade. I just kept going with it and everything.
Since that time, what positions have you played? What's been your favorite?
So I've been at center and defensive end. I last year moved around a little bit on the offensive line, but not a whole ton, but I'm still at center and defensive end.
Why have you chosen to keep playing football this whole time? 2nd grade, that's a long time to be playing.
Just the adversity that comes with it, all the opportunities that come with it, all the friends that you meet with it, and everything like that.
The brotherhood, right? If you would, talking to a lot of guys, the brotherhood ends up meaning just as much as the play.
Yep, exactly.
So what are your plans after high school? Have you made a decision what you want to do?
I haven't made a decision. I've thought about a couple things. I've looked into the military as well as going to play football for later on, but I have yet to decide yet.
What branch of the military are you looking at, if any branch?
I've looked into the Air Force. I've looked really hard into that just because I like the opportunities that come with it.
So you are a multi-sport athlete. We've seen you all over doing different things. In the winter, you wrestle, and in the spring, you do track, and of course, football in the fall. What's your favorite sport you like to do?
I would probably have to say football because I've just been doing it for so long. Second, I'd probably have to go with track.
So rapid-fire questions. Everybody we're going to talk to, we're going to ask these same questions to kind of get their feel and their answer as to different things. Going to give you 10 questions. First thing that comes to your mind. You ready?
Yep.
All right. First thing, Ducks or Beavers?
Beavers.
What's your favorite pro football team?
Green Bay Packers.
Favorite pro athlete?
Lamar Jackson.
Most disliked food?
Sushi. Gotta go with sushi.
I'm not a fish guy either. Disneyland or Six Flags?
Six Flags.
What's your dream car?
Any kind of truck.
Any kind of truck. Nothing specific?
None specific.
New, old?
You know, I.
4 wheels and a pickup bit.
Yep, exactly.
There you go. What do you want to do when you grow up?
I still haven't decided. I mean, I've looked into playing football and stuff, but still have yet to decide.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
No hesitation there.
Nope.
Who would you say is your biggest fan?
I'd have to go with my mom.
What would you say to your mom right now?
I love you, Mom.
One last question. Who do you admire?
I would have to say my grandpa. I admire my grandpa a lot.
I'm going to dive into that one just a little bit. Why your grandpa?
Just because he's always kind of been there for me. Anytime that I need to talk about football or anything like that, he's always been there. He's always answering the phone, even though that he's miles away and stuff. And I really admire him for that. And, he's just an all-around great guy.
Very cool. It's nice to have our grandpas around, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, grandpas are special. You were selected by your teammates to be captain, one of 3 captains. Your 4th one gets rotated by the coach's choice. What does it mean to you to be selected as one of those 3 captains?
To be a captain, for me, I think that you got to have hard work, just showing everyone how it's done. You got to be out there. You got to be putting yourself out there, showing them what it really means to, I guess you could say, be a Mazama Viking, Like the 2 other captains, like Brandon Gailey, Daniel Yancey, they always putting themselves out there, always pushing others and everything like that. And that's one big thing that I see with the captain. Another thing that I got to see is that you got to be able to cooperate with others. If there's no cooperation, no one's going to listen to you or anything. And so I think that that's another big part. But I would have to say probably those 2 are my biggest.
There's got to be some sort of like emotional feels that you got as well when you were chosen by your teammates. How did that feel when the announcement was made and you were going to be captain?
When I heard that, I felt like really good inside, because it felt like that all this time since freshman year or even beforehand, it's just shown that my team cares about me and they see me as someone pushing them to be better every single day and stuff. And so I just felt amazing about that because it just made me feel like I was doing my job.
That's an amazing feeling, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And there's something I've also seen is being on the sidelines as often as I am, the team kind of rallies around you. And I don't just mean the huddle when they come in because you're center, but the team really kind of looks to you for advice and guidance and keeping them up.
Yeah, I think that the biggest part with that is that with us pushing them and everything, not only that, you get to learn so much about each other. And so with that, the cooperation comes in and everything like that. And you guys just have this bond tighter and tighter and everything. And so just with them rallying to you, it's just because we're all family. That's really what it is.
Thank you, Nate, for taking time out of your busy day as well and visiting with us here on the KSN Underground Podcast. We wish you luck this weekend in Central Point. I will be in Central Point or wherever the game could potentially relocate due to smoky conditions, covering the Vikings versus the Comets for Klamath Sports Network. Ahead of the game, I will be live with the Vikings pregame show. Be sure to look for our social media updates throughout the game as well. I'll have a Facebook post updated with the latest score and lists of major plays throughout the game. Over on our Instagram page, I will have some behind-the-scenes photos and videos from the sidelines. I may even tweet a couple of times as well. So be sure to like and follow us on your favorite platform. Just search Klamath Sports Network. This episode is brought to you this week by our KS Insiders. If you would like to learn more about the KS Insider program, visit klamathsports.net and click the yellow button at the top of the page. For my guest, Mazama Football head coach Vic Lease and Vikings captain Nate Tramp, I am Brian Gailey, and we will see you on the field.